how to clone type in Affinity Photo. I've created some type already. It's just basic type using over there frame text as well as artistic text. And I've created that as obviously multiple layers of type. Now you can't use that as a clone source, unfortunately. So if I go down to the clone source and try and add it as a clone source, and you can find that via the View and Studio and Sources. Layers is quite a handy panel as well, and brushes for this. But sources, so if I try and add it at this point, it won't work. I could click it, nothing. Well, how to use that type? What you can do, you can go to a layer menu, and you can see they're all layers there. So layer menu, and I can merge them. I can also rasterize them if I wanted to as well, but I can merge visible. So you've got them all as one merged type now. And what you can then do, of course, I can delete all the other type layers. I don't want them anymore. So I've got that layer. Now I can't edit the text anymore, unfortunately. But of course, if I kept the original text, I could have edited them and then done the same merge visible again and remove that one. So sources. Now I go down and try and save it again. Voila. It's saved. It's saved over in the sources now. So I can use it. So what can I do with that? Now obviously I can apply some effects as well, because it's just a layer. It's just a standard layer. So I can deform that design. I could change the linear constraints. I can change the master setting. I can add pins, etc. And I can distort the design. I can distort it in all kinds of different ways. Click apply. So once I've done that, what I can do, I can add that, go down to that bottom there, and let's move it over slightly, and add that as well. So you can see it's just been added there. It's a sort of the history state of your changes. Now I can undo that, of course. I can use the history panel just to resort it back to the earlier point. And I can resize the type. Maybe hold down the Alt Option key and duplicate that layer. So you can create a more complex mess of type. Well, now this is just a build up to show you can use type. Obviously, I've now building up the clone sources there. And again, what I can do with this, I've got multiple layers. Now, if I go over to the clone again, down the bottom, I can click there. And then you can see what happens. All it's done is just taken that one layer that I was currently selecting. I don't want that. Right. But I can undo that. Or just delete it is probably best. There is no undo command, which is very odd, but you can't undo that add in there. But what, of course, you can do, you can merge all the layers again. So you can go to Layer menu, and you can merge visible. So all of them have been merged into one again. Now I could remove all the other layers. I don't have to do that. I like to do that. I'd like to clear them down. And I've got that one layer now. And of course I can always go back to the former state via the history panel. And again I can click down there and add that as a clone source. And I could of course apply deform and blurs, etc. via the filters menu to that set of designs there. And I could resize that and duplicate that and so on and so on. I could create all kinds or rotate it. And again I can then add that as a source. Or maybe apply a blur. via the filter menu, Gaussian blur. Change the blur radius and apply. And add that, just go down the bottom bit again and add that as a source. Now, once I've done this, I've got all my sources. What I can do now is I can create a new document, or if there's an existing document, of course, I can use those clone sources. I'm not going to add any more because I could just keep adding more and more sources. I don't know if there's a limit. Maybe there's a limit. So I can create a new file or say use an existing one. Maybe you've got an image that you've got and you want to add some type on top of it. Well, you can go to a layer and a new layer. That's the key thing. Without a new layer, it will not work. Then go over to the clone brush. And tools, you can see there, tools, and there's the clone. And apply it to that layer. Now select a brush. Now you could go for any of the brushes, maybe a splatter brush, spray brush, whatever. Change the size. Maybe change the blending mode. Don't have to keep it normal. But if you want to apply it, what you need to do is set a clone source. So you've got to go to the sources and double click on that entry, on the entry you want to work with. You can always delete them as well, just kind of there. But you can double click on that thing and you'll see a preview pop up. And then just select part of the area where you want to use. And then you can just apply it. Now, if you want to apply that exact same area again, you just go back to it and double click again. Double click and then click on the place where you want to work with, say there. And then you can apply it that. And you can go back to the same source and go maybe to a different area. Click that. But every time you have to go to the sources panel and double click. And then just apply it. Just click. And now just go anywhere in the document. It doesn't have to be in the same location as before. It doesn't matter. If you went to the top left, you'll see exactly the same as what you've got there. So go to a different part of it. Again, double click and then click on the actual clone source. It's a pity you can't do it via the preview. Actually just hover over and then define it that way, but that's not the way it works. So you can go to a completely different part of the area and then apply that. And again, you can go to any of the other sources. You've got that one, again, double click on that one and then click on where you want to do it and go to a different position and apply that stroke. And you can see the text there. And you can repeat that obviously constantly. But you can do more than that, of course. You can modify that. I mean, it's just a layer. So you can actually now, I don't have to keep it like that. Maybe I could apply a blur to it or deform that design. So double click on that. And this one's a deform design, but I can again select somewhere there, just click on there. And now when I go and apply brush, you can see that being added there. But again, like I say, you can go and apply blurs, deform to that design. Of course, you could also use adjustment layers as well. You could add an adjustment layer on top of the current layer so you could recolor it. So you're still painting and the color would be taken from the adjustment layer. So you might have a HSL or etc. Or maybe use a layer above that's one of the filter layers, live filter layers. So you can do it all on that layer, but you can also, of course, go to the layer menu and add a new layer. So layer and a new layer, or I could duplicate that current layer. It's up to you. Again, go over there, double click on the source you want to use, and then select the area you want to use. Just click on that, and now you apply the brush stroke. And of course, you could vary the brush. You don't have to keep using this. I'm using the same brush, but I could go and vary the brush. Now this is being applied not to the previous layer, but to a new layer. And what you can then do, of course, you can move it around. It's just a layer and it's obviously a very limited amount of text there. You can reposition it. You can hold down the Alt or Option key and duplicate the design. and repeat that, so you can spread it around to create some really interesting combinations of type. Maybe you've got a headline that you want to repeat through your design. You can rotate the type. And also what you can do, of course, you can go to filters, maybe blur, but you can do distort and deform, but you're just deforming that layer. You're not deforming the other layers. So only that layer is distorted. So you can warp it. That type can be distorted in all kinds of ways. And of course, you can continue to add to that layer. Add additional brushes. You can also modify it in other ways. Maybe use adjustment layers again. You could recolor it. So you can create some amazing designs just using that approach. And then you can add some more there. And you can keep doing this over and over again. Just select, obviously, the source position and then apply it. Of course, what you can also do, it's a layer. So what you can go to a layer menu and you can, again, duplicate it more. Maybe go down to the layers panel and then go down to the FX and maybe add a style, maybe a drop shadow, or well, now I'm just going to say there with adjustments. So layer and new adjustment layer and HSL. And then I can just modify the color. Now that's being applied to the whole lot. You can see that's above all the other layers. Of course, what you can do, you can always take that layer in adjustment layer and move it, reposition it if you wish. Also, what you can do, you can merge visible via the layer menu. So it's all combined into that design. But you can continue also now to add additional brush and so on and so on. You can see you can really just build up all kinds of complex designs by using this approach. And again, continue to apply your brush. And of course, the adjustment layer is now not there. So the color is, of course, the original from the source document. And again, what you can do, you can go to filters and so on and so on. Make all kinds of combinations to create some really amazing, warped and wonderful, blurred and lots of different text designs. And of course, I've just used random type. Now, this is a complete one. I've got a fresh document again, but I've created a document before. This one is some document with actual type in it. I just quickly created it. It's frame type, frame text, I should say, in Affinity Photo. And of course I could edit it, and it could obviously be real text. I've just randomly typed in lots of letters. Now I want to use that as a clone source. So what I can do, I can just quickly change from that type something else in. So if I go to sources and try and save it, click there, doesn't work. It won't work. It will not use that. But what you can do, you can rasterize it. So go to a layer menu and you can go to rasterize. So it's rasterized now. Now, if you go down to over to the sources, go to sources, go down to the bottom, it's the layer there, you've got layers, that's a pixel layer now. You can go down the bottom there and the bottom right and click, and it will be added. Obviously you can't really see it particularly well because it's black against the grey, not very useful. You can see that the type has been added. But what you can do, of course, it's a layer, but you can always use the history panel and go back. So you can go to the history panel just before the rasterization. So there's the history panel. You can then, of course, modify the type. Studio, that's View Studio. You've got history, layers, brushes, etc. and sources. They're the key panels. And now it's just normal text again. What you can do, you can edit it. So you can see it's text layer there again. Go down to the frame text and edit it. Just select some part of it. And obviously I'm just doing it. I'm going to change the font. So I've got a different font there. Could change it to another font. And so on and so on. And I can change the colour. I can change the bold. I can change the whole range of different things. It's just standard type. Now, once I've done my changes, I could change the colour, of course, as well. Maybe go make that red or green or blue. And then what I can do, I can rasterize that again. So I can go to the layer menu and I can rasterize that. Again, I say if I try and click there, it won't save it. But I need to go to layer menu and rasterize. So down there again. So now what I can do, I can go to the sources and I can go over there and I can click on there. And that will be saved. And of course I could go back to it again and edit the type. Now, of course, I've got random type. I've just typed FN, whatever, XYZ. But you could, of course, have other text in there instead. I could resize it. I could resize the frame. But always use the history panel just to go back to the rasterization, edit the type. Just change it. Change the font again. Change the size. Whatever you want to do. Maybe change it to blue or green. And then you got that, and maybe go to a different font. Just select something, Arial Black. And again, what you can do, you can rasterize it again. So layer menu and rasterize. As I say, can't click on there. Need to go to layer menu and rasterize. And now you can go over there and you can click on that clone source. Now, once you've done all this, and I could do, obviously, I could continue doing this for hours and hours. I could have hours of fun just changing the type. Oh, I don't want to do that. And also, of course, I could apply some effects. I could add a blur to that. My old favourite Gaussian blur. What you can do, you can use the clone brush with all those clone sources again. So again, I can click there and that design is saved to the clone sources. So now I can go to a new document and use those. So there's a new document. I need a layer. So if there's no layer, I need a layer. So always the first thing to do is layer and new layer. Layer and new layer. And then double click on one of those clone sources. Select, click on the thing to define your area of where you start. And then you can apply it like that. So you can see what you can do. You can say maybe have different types. So maybe you have like a whole load of text and you maybe have different words in there and you want to sort of put different names in different things. You could change the name each time and then you could paint in the same text, but the name would be different each time you apply the paint stroke. And so on and so on. I mean, there's also maybe you've got a design with an empty placard or something and you want some type. So what you can do, you could set up some clone sources. Again, double click on those and select the thing. You could maybe have a load of different type for that board in different clone sources. So you could select them each time, just go over and then paint them on. And you could vary that. So you could end up with different, and it would all have a more painted style. Because of course, I'm using a very basic paintbrush here, but you could use a splatter brush or maybe one of the oil effect brushes. There's a load of different brushes. So Obviously the design's pretty boring there in the sense of it's just a standard brush, but you could use a splatter brush and make it much more interesting type than just that. And of course you can always go and vary the brushes. Brushes have got a lot of adaptability to change maybe the way it scatters, the way it applies, the colour, everything else. Lots of different settings that you can use. And obviously I haven't done that in this. I'm just showing the example of the clone with a brush, but it could be with different brushes. And Affinity Photo does come with an awful lot of brushes. And again, you can apply brushes onto a layer, multiple layers. Maybe you could duplicate that layer, and so on and so on. There's so many different things you can do with this design, and they're all from those basic clone sources, which can be modified at any point. And also, of course, you can always go to the sources panel and you can delete them as well if you don't want to use them anymore. Hope you found this of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel, always adding new tutorials about Affinity Photo, Photoshop, and many others. Also, please add some comments, always appreciated. A dislike or like. Thank you much.